Aussies have never had as much choice in buying an electric vehicle, which is great news for those in the market. However, with so many options out there, how do you set your model aside from the rest? Cupra could have the answer in this new Tavascan mid-sized SUV. It's a sporty and stylish alternative to cars like the Tesla Model Y. We're here in Adelaide to check it out, so without further ado, let's get right into it. The Cupra Tavascan is the brand's second all-electric offering in Australia, following the Born small hatch that made its debut in 2023. It shares the same MEB architecture, a platform that also underpins the likes of the Volkswagen ID4, Volkswagen ID Buzz, and the Skoda Enyaq. But Cupra says the Tavascan stands alone by offering a sporty sense of style not shared with any other Volkswagen Group product. This sense of style is a point of difference to other electric vehicles in the market too, such as the Tesla Model Y and the Kia EV5. As mentioned, there are plenty of mid-sized electric vehicle options available to Australians now. You can find out more about each of them on Drive.com.au, plus you can even browse examples of those cars for sale on Drive Marketplace. In terms of pricing, the Cupra Tavascan starts off more expensive than the Kia EV5 and Tesla Model Y rivals, but it does undercut other vehicles in the wider Volkswagen Group electric lineup, such as the Skoda Enyaq. The Cupra Tavascan comes to Australia in two unique specifications: the Endurance entry-level with rear-wheel drive and the VZ flagship with all-wheel drive. The Endurance costs $60,990 plus on-road costs. It gets a single electric motor that produces 210 kilowatts and 545 newton meters to its rear mount motor, fed by a 77 kilowatt-hour battery that's said to provide up to 530 kilometers of driving range. However, we're spending more time in the performance-minded Tavascan VZ. That begins from $74,490. This car gets dual motors and all-wheel drive for a combined 250 kilowatts of power, and a reduced 499 kilometers of driving range, although it does sprint from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 5.5 seconds. Both variants can recoup charge at a maximum 135 kilowatt DC charge rate. Other reasons you might choose a Tavascan VZ include its 21-inch alloy wheels with copper accents, adaptive suspension, matrix LED headlights, fixed glass roof, electric adjust seats with heating, or the 12-speaker Sennheiser audio system. Styling-wise, I think that this Tavascan is a really striking car in the metal, but do you agree? Let us know in the comments below. I just want to point out a few things on the front end. It does have a low front grille that is low set there. It does have pass-throughs that aid aerodynamics that go through the grille and up through the bonnet. Obviously some high set LED headlights. And this specification, the Tavascan VZ, it does have a big set of 21-inch wheels with copper accents. That is a Cupra trademark. Down the side of the car, we do have inset door handles that do aid aerodynamics, black details on the mirrors and on the lower skirts, no roof rails on this one, and then a coupe style rear end. Now, I think the rear end of this vehicle is almost as eye-catching as the front in terms of styling. You do have big Cupra script on the tailgate there, an accentuated lower splitter, and a tall full-width light bar that does incorporate a light-up logo. You also do get one at the front. In terms of boot space, it is a power-operated tailgate, and then underneath the boot floor, you do get a space to stow cables and that sort of thing for charging this vehicle. It does expand in terms of overall capacity to 1,550 litres when these 60/40 seats are folded flat, but overall it does feel like a nice and practical space back here. You don't see a lot of car interiors styled to this sort of extent, which is a nice point of difference for this Cupra Tavascan. Just pointing out a couple things, I love the way this dash sort of comes to the center here and then does end with this big spine down the center. And overall, I really like the way this car looks in terms of not only its design, but also the materials and colors used inside the cabin. Now, materials, it is a two-part story because there are a few sort of plasticky and hollow sounding trims around the interior that don't feel very nice in this car. But then again, the way that you do feel these seats, this is a nice sort of Alcantara fabric, and design points around the interior, it is a very nice car in the way it presents. This is a VZ specification, so it does have the nice ambient lights that do light up the door panels and make it look really impressive at nighttime. And then you also do get a light bar beneath the windscreen there. It does have a Sennheiser audio system in this specification and nicer trimmed seats as well. Around the center console here, you do have a dual door opening center console compartment, so you do have a lot of deep storage available there. Dual cup holders, a bit of a tray underneath here, and a wireless smartphone charger. That is in addition to 2 USB-C ports and a 12-volt outlet. Taking pride of place on the Cupra Tavascan's dash is a massive 15-inch screen. It is pretty quick and it does have new software underneath, so you will see quite snappy load times, and as you swipe through, it's pretty quick to cycle between all these different bits and pieces. However, I don't like the fact that you do have touch controls for controlling things like the air conditioning. And then around this steering wheel here, it does have touch controls as well. So when you are driving the car, you can inadvertently select those options. So that is one thing to consider. But overall, the infotainment in this car, it is an impressive display. I like the way that Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, it does render on the display and it looks massive. So it is a really nice integration there. The second row of the Tavascan does have a nice amount of space. I've got a little bit of room between my knees and the back of the driving position that I selected earlier, and I've got a decent amount of space for my feet. I'm a little bit encumbered in terms of headroom. That is a byproduct of having a coupe style sloping rear roofline, so that is a little bit of a minus. And one thing I do like to see in a mid-sized SUV is a sliding second row base. This one, it doesn't even recline, so you don't have any adjustment of this backrest here. So it's not the most adaptable interior, but it does have amenities. You do get air vents, USB-C ports, a fold-down center armrest with a pair of cup holders, some map pockets, obviously some lights and some grab handles. But one thing I don't like is the fact that this car, the real materials quality, it does diminish when you are in the second row here. It does feel quite plasticky, and although you do get ambient lights inside the inlays here, it just feels a little bit cheaper compared to the front row of this cabin. A lot of people with electric cars, they talk about the fact that they can go from 0 to 100 from rest in a really blistering time. And while this Cupra Tavascan VZ can do the 0 to 100 sprint in 5.5 seconds, it's actually not the thing I'm most impressed by. I actually love the way that this thing picks up when you lean into the throttle when you're on the move, because you put your foot down and this is a really, really fast car. So it does have 250 kilowatts through dual motors, one at the front, one at the back, obviously, all-wheel drive. I will note that this car is doing around 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers in terms of efficiency of its energy. Now, that's not exactly bad for an electric vehicle, but I would like to see that figure around the 16 to 17 kilowatt hour per 100 mark, because that is something that you would see out of a Tesla Model Y, for example. The Tavascan VZ, it actually doesn't feel like it's overloaded in terms of what it's doing by putting power down to the ground. It feels very capable of putting all of its outputs down to the ground in an effective fashion. But there are certain instances when you're going around a corner and you feel like there could be a little bit more mechanical grip, and in that sense, I wish that it was just a little bit more tied down and a little bit more planted. One area that I think Cupra has made impressive improvements in is in terms of road noise. I remember driving the Born a couple of years ago and being a little bit disappointed with the amount of noise that entered the cabin. In this thing, it feels nice and subdued. I'm very comfortable inside this cabin, whether I'm going over coarse chip bitumen or on the freeway at 110 kilometers an hour. This is a really quiet cabin, and you don't actually hear that much wind noise either. The only thing that I did sort of notice was when I had this driver's window down, there was a little bit of buffeting, so maybe one of those things to just iron out in the future. Cupra says that the Tavascan is a driver's EV, first and foremost. And while I have found that it is a fun car to drive around rural Adelaide that we have been driving around today, I think it's not quite there for a performance EV, because you can certainly push this car quite fast. However, it just feels a little bit numb. It's just not that much feel coming through from the steering wheel. You don't get, obviously it's an electric vehicle, but you don't get that much noise coming inside the cabin. It's got some sort of fake noises here and there, but I would love to have a little bit of customization there in terms of the noises that this car has. And yeah, there's just not that much in the way of driver feel. However, I do think it is very capable. One thing that I don't love is the fact that this brake pedal, it does feel really, really disjointed to what the braking power is actually doing with the wheels, because I'll put my foot in the brake pedal now and you really do have to push a solid way through the pedal in order to get any sort of retardation. Overall, the braking feel in this thing, it's really disjointed and it's just not enjoyable. You don't really know whether you're going to get a lot of braking output when you put your foot down, and it's just hard, especially when you are transitioning between the regen braking of this thing and the friction brakes as well. Do note that this Cupra Tavascan, it does have front disc brakes only, the rears are drums. This Cupra Tavascan, it does have a great driving position. I've got good space in my footwell here and I've got a good view of the road ahead of me. It's just behind me that does feel a little bit letterboxed in terms of vision. Through the rear vision mirror here, I can see that there's not a lot of vision that I've got behind me, and that is because it is one of those coupe style SUVs with the sloping rear roof lines. If practicality matters to you, maybe that is something that will be against you when buying this car. I did mention before that this Cupra Tavascan, it does have a few scratchy plastics around the interior. It's not the nicest to feel, however, it is holding up quite well. We've been going over some pretty rough roads today and the build quality seems pretty decent in this thing. Just touching on that driving position again, I find that in addition to being very comfortable, having a good amount of space, I find that in this seat here, I'm very well cosseted. I've got a good amount of side bolstering so that I am kept tight in through corners, and I do like this sort of suede Alcantara effect trim that the seats are covered in. It does mean that you're not slipping around on the seat as you go through corners. Cupra is expanding its electric vehicle range, and in the Tavascan, it does provide a nice, practical and stylish offering. I'm not sure that it is ultimately quite sporty, but it does feel like a nice car to drive in the right scenario. If you are chasing a little bit of fun and a little bit of design flair from your electric vehicle, and let's face it, they can be pretty dull things without those attributes, the Cupra Tavascan is an exciting option in the electric market now. I think they have absolutely nailed the design brief on this thing. It is a very impressive thing in the way it looks, and they haven't compromised on things that matter either. It's still comfortable, it's still quite tech infused, and it remains a pretty fun thing to drive. If nothing else, I can't wait to spend more time in this car throughout the year and even hopefully put it up against a Tesla Model Y. Now, if you've enjoyed this video or learned something interesting about the Cupra Tavascan, please give us a like to show your support and consider subscribing to get more content like this. You can also read the full review on Drive.com.au.